All right. So welcome everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Russell Cummings, and I'm a business consultant based in Bundaberg in Queensland. Work primarily with family businesses, helping them to meet their goals and achieve their profitability. And webinars we're finding is a great way of communicating message. Also doing some great training and doing things. I'm also the project director for a project in horticulture called Horticulture the Next Generation, and these webinars are partly sponsored by Horticulture the Next Generation project. Hort the Next Generation is a program where we're I'll try and speak up, Simon. Where we're looking to improve the business skills of horticultural leaders across Australia, and that's a program that's been going now for the last 2 years, and we're working really closely with horticultural producers to do that. And this is part of the program. We're offering training across things. So that's Horticulture Next Generation. You should have a copy of a workbook there. It's quite a simple workbook, and we'll work through that as we go today, we will get going on that. We're recording it, so if you want to go back and look at things, then you can, you can review all this over time and everything else. So let's get started. Just check that everybody's okay, Elaine, I'm not sure. You should be able to see something, so you should see my PowerPoint presentation on your screen. Ray, you might be able to just touch base with Elaine and see if you can help her out there. Okay. All right, so we'll push into the main part of the program. So we're talking really about scenario planning, and we're going to step you through a fairly simplified process of it. Scenario planning is a tool that I've used over a number of years with clients. It's a really powerful tool. But today's session, in 30 minutes, we're just going to take you through a simple process. I'll get you to work on different elements as we work through, but in reality, you're going to need to come back and do this in your business over time, because it's going to take a little bit more than 30 minutes to work through all the elements. So, really, what is scenario planning? So scenario planning is a tool that was developed in the 1970s by the Royal Dutch Shell Company in those days, and they used it as a methodology for planning how they were going to address issues like the impending oil crisis, and also things like apartheid in South Africa, those sorts of things. And it was a very simple tool, but quite a powerful tool for determining, some different futures for your business. So often I find in business that we make a plan, and it revolves around one vision of the future. So we decide what the future is going to be, and then we build a plan around that, and that's the way we go. And then we don't really think about, well, what alternative futures could they be? So scenario planning is really about creating different scenarios for the future, and working out how you might modify your strategies, your long-term or your medium-term actions in your business to address those. So it's not about predicting the future, because we can't do that. It's about creating, multiple views of possible futures and saying what's going to happen to our plans if these come through. Now, we can use it in a variety of situations. So you can use it to plan your business, you can use it in your personal life, you can use it in a whole range of different things. And there are far more complex methodologies that I'm going to show you today, but that is quite a simple process for you to get started on using a scenario planning and work through it. So let's start with that process. Okay, so on page 2 of your workbook, you'll see this 5-step process. And the 5 steps are really, you need to develop a plan for your business is the first part. So scenario planning is actually about testing your plan against different scenarios. And one of the things you can you need to do is have a simple plan for your business. In a coming webinar, we're going to sit down and work you through a process, probably a longer process than 30 minutes, but we'll work you through a longer process to help you actually develop a simple plan for your business. But you need to have a plan, some simple strategies, 3 or 4 simple strategies that you're going to focus on to get your business moving in the next 3 to 5 years. And then what you do is you develop, 4 possible scenarios in our methodology today. So you analyze the business environment. We're going to show you a simple tool for doing that. Analyze the business environment, develop 4 possible scenarios, and then step 3 is to test the plan and your key strategies against each scenario. Once you've done a bit of that testing, then we can look at the good ideas that drop out of it, any changes you might need to think about, and integrate those back into your core plan, and then you can repeat it. So you can either repeat it on an annual basis, just looking at scenarios again, or you might decide that you need to look at and test more than 4 scenarios. You might want to go and test it again and create a whole heap of other scenarios. And I guess that's a simple methodology for doing this. So let's step through the process. So step 1, you've already developed a plan. We'll talk about that. So step 2 is about developing 4 possible scenarios. And the simple tool we're going to start to use to do that is to analyze your business environment. So the first step is to analyze that business environment, and we're going to use a simple framework, and it's called PESTLE analysis. Or you can do just PEST analysis if you like, but the longer version is PESTLE. Right? And PESTLE stands for these 6 things: the political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal factors that are acting on your business business environment, and that you're using to analyze it. So the question you ask yourself are, what are the major political issues or factors impacting on our business now and in the future? And then you fill those out, and then you work with them. Now, there's if you look at pest analysis and you go, well, there's a simple tool for doing that. We use a mind map to do that. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a couple of minutes, and you can just mind map that out. So on page 3 of your workbook, you will see that there's a little trend analysis there. You can do a little trend analysis, and you might think about what are the factors that are going to impact on you. So think through the pest. I'll put them back up and again in a second. But political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal. Map those out. So let's just go back. So what I'd like you to think about now is very quickly, just think of 1 or 2 factors in each of those that are impacting on your business. Yeah. So, and I tell you what, why don't we just go through political? So if you've thought of a political one, why don't you type into the question area? So what are some of the political factors that might be impacting your business now? Yeah. And if you've got some, why don't you just type it into the question area, and I can relay it to everybody else. So have a think about it. So what's some of the political factors that are impacting on your business now or into the future? So it could be about a change of government. It could be about particular policies. It could be a whole range of things. All right. If you can't come up with anything political, let's think about economic. So are there any economic factors? So economic factors, So some of the political ones are coming in to do with that are business confidence. And, I don't really mind where these things drop into the PESTLE analysis. Really, it's just a framework to stimulate your thinking. So business confidence, consumer confidence, government funding of coaching work for business coaches, town planning changes for people in different industries. So there'll be different things for different people. Then you just move through those and you say, well, economics. So what are the economic impacts? And it might be around, the Aussie dollar, or taxation benefits, or other things, or consumer confidence probably fits into economic for me. Social trends. What are some of the social trends we need to be aware of? If we're in horticulture industries, producing food and that sort of stuff, some of the social trends are around obesity and people wanting to get back in touch with, farmers and roots and that sort of stuff, and understand the provenance of their food and where it comes from and those sorts of things. So you can just keep working through them. So I just want you to take another 2 minutes. If you can, I want you to write down at least one thing in each of those 6 areas: political, economic, social, technological, environment, and legal. So that's on page 3 of your workbook. A simple way to do that is the mind map. For those of you who are not familiar with mind mapping, there's a plethora of information on the internet around mind mapping. My suggestion is you type mind mapping into Google and you'll see a whole range of stuff. It's a fantastic tool that me and my colleagues use a lot. All right. So just if you can, just take a minute or 2 to do that, and we will we'll move on in just a second. So I'll give you another minute or 2. All right, Elaine, I'm sorry about that. Looks like you're having some trouble logging in. Okay. All right, so you've done your pest analysis, and remember, you're going to have to go back and have a look at sort of what you might be able to do in your business. So take a little bit more time to think it through. So think through your pest analysis. Okay. Now, if you're doing this pest analysis, done your pest analysis, and you've mapped out the trends, the pestle trends for your business, what I want you to do is then use the Pareto principle. So the 80-20 rule. So, I want you to pick the 20% of things on your mind map there that could give 80% of the variability or the change in your business. My example here, I've selected 2. So you want to select 2 factors. And what I've selected is, if we're a horticultural business, variable seasonal conditions could be one, and the volatility in the Australian dollar could be another one. But, given some of the things that you guys came up with, then you want to pick the pestle ones that are for you. But they're going to be different for every business. But just pick 2. So if you pick 2, and they're the ones going to have an impact for you and could change the future. So if you look at the other way to do it is to look at the pest analysis, look at all the factors there, and say, okay, there's a whole heap of things here that are either certain or uncertain. So some things are going to happen, and other things are less certain. Okay, so what you want to do is start to say, well, there's a whole heap of things there's a relatively high level of certainty is going to happen. We've probably built that into our thinking already, but the things that are variable, we probably haven't looked at the full range of variation around those. So what I want you to do is pick 2 things that are probably highly variable. So I've said I've picked variable seasonal conditions and volatility. And then what we're going to do is go to pick 2 factors, and you can write those on page 3. And then if you look at page 4, there's a little bit of a axis here. So what we do, we take our 2 factors. So mine were Australian dollar and seasonal conditions, so horticultural business. And they're the red thing. So what you do is pick high and low and of each of those. So I've said one axis is the Australian dollar axis, and at one end we've got a high Aussie dollar, and at the other end we've got a low Aussie dollar. And then on the horizontal axis, I've said we've either got good seasonal conditions or poor seasonal conditions. Okay. So what you do is create that axis. Then in each quadrant, you then say, what's the environment that's going to be created by the combination of those 2 factors? So if you look at the one there that I've called oversupply, high Aussie dollar and good seasonal conditions would mean that there's increased supply of horticultural product around Australia, a lot of pressure from imports, because imports are far more competitive in a high Aussie dollar. There's challenges for exporters and people who export because of the high Aussie dollar. We can expect downward price pressure because of oversupply and lower inputs, but because of good seasonal conditions, we can expect a good general product quality. If you go down to the bottom right-hand corner, where I've called that added value, where we've got low Australian dollar and poor seasonal conditions, you can see we'll have lower supply volumes, poor quality, so the seasonal conditions will give us quality issues or variable quality issues, but the low Aussie dollar will give us opportunities for export. There may be opportunities to value add, to do things in there, and there will be good price opportunities for quality products. So if we've got quality product, then we can get those. So what you do is in each quadrant, you just come up with 4 or 5 points that describe that particular scenario in a little bit of detail. And then you go around like I have and give them a name. So I've called each of the scenarios in mine oversupply, import challenges, adding value, and export opportunities. And you've just created 4 different scenarios that you can then test against your particular business plan. So what I'd like you to do, we've got a couple of minutes here. So what I'd like you to do is pick your 2 factors that you've thought of, put them on each axis, and then just pick one quadrant, and very quickly, come up with 4 or 5 points that summarise that particular scenario, and then give it a name. So once you've got to do the points first, and then you name it, but just do one quadrant. Okay, so you've got a couple of minutes to do that. So I'll give you a few minutes to do that, and then we'll move on. If you've got any questions, please just type them into the question area, and I can help you out. Because if you've got a question, then I'm sure there'll be other people with the same question. So again, just take that time. Oversupply, is the name that I gave it, and I've just defined the 4 or 5 points that will define that. Okay, so just keep working it through. It's not that hard, but it's just a matter of thinking about, what will the environment be like with the 2 factors that I've picked. Now, you may find that the factors you've picked don't really allow you to do that, or aren't detailed enough for you to build a thing. That probably tells me they're not really as important as what you thought. So you might need to go back and have a look back at your pestle analysis again, and start to pull out some factors that are really going to drive change in your business. Okay. All right. Just take another minute and see if you can come up with a bit of a scenario there. For those of you who've already done it and named it, you might tell me what. Just type the name of it into the question area. So, what's the name of the scenario that you've come up with? That's gone well. Not a single response. So, is anybody out there? If you come up with a name for a scenario, you might let me know. Just to show you, sort of, that's an example there you might use for a horticultural business. Here's another one, which is an example of an e-learning example from I think it's from Edinburgh University, and they looked at that technology. Was one of the big drivers, and it either empowers people or it frustrates people, or and then they looked at that it was very much about the establishment and conventional ways of doing things, or that people would become far more self-organizing in the way they do things. And then they built 4 scenarios around those, and you'll see these in the slides that we send out. And they call those virtually vanilla, web of confidence, you choose, and back to the future. So that reflects each of those sort of areas. and really quite it's quite a simple but yet powerful thing. If you put a bit of time into the factors and those sorts of things, you can come up with some really good scenarios that will really challenge your I guess the status quo in your planning and make you think a bit further outside the square. All right, so now we're at I guess step 3 in my process, which says, what are we going to do now in terms of testing these scenarios? And so what we've got is a simple matrix here, a simple table. I've pre-populated it for you, but really what we've done is just create a thing. So what you do is from your plan, you would have your existing strategies. So I've said our existing strategies are to explore growth in new markets, develop new product lines, leadership training for our emerging managers, and to improve our internal system. All right, so they're pretty typical sorts of strategies. A couple around marketing and that sort of area, something around people and development, and something around systems and processes and efficiency. They're the standard sort of strategies that drop out of most plans. And then across the top, you can see there I've dropped in the names of my 4 scenarios: oversupply, import challenges, export opportunities, and adding value. So then what you do is for each scenario, you then say, if this scenario was to come true, how would we modify the implementation of our strategies? So I want you to notice that we're not necessarily going to change the strategies. Now, you might find your strategy is horribly wrong. From my line of thinking, then you haven't been nearly as strategic as you need to be in developing the strategies. So your process for developing strategies is probably not as robust as it could have been in the first place, because your strategies should be medium-term actions that are enduring. So they should last for 3 to 5 years without you needing to change them. But the implementation, how you actually implement those strategies, and the nuance of how you I guess how you focus on them or how you make them a reality could change. So the strategies haven't changed is what we're going to do. So if you take the oversupply example, and remember in that oversupply example, we were talking about increased product supply, pressure from imports, some export challenges, downward price pressure on things, and just general good product quality. So the quality of product in the marketplace was generally pretty good. We then said, right, if we're going to explore new markets, then we need to focus on secure opportunities only, because the risk of going for more riskier opportunities is not a good time to do that. Because product qualities are really good, we thought we'd investigate products around uber quality. So something around saying, well, how can we find something that takes a premium or a platinum level product and do something around that? We thought we would need to focus heavily on customer service and adapted sales. So any of you who have read the book, The Challenger Sale, will understand adapted sales. So adapted sales is very much about thinking through your process and being far more adaptable in your sales process. But I'll leave it for you to read the book. And the last one is there to focus on systems that will eliminate our costs. So if we're in a highly pressurized environment with lots of downward pressure on price and things, we really need to focus on those systems that eliminate our costs. Just as a contrast then, where we said we had, import challenges. So import challenges, Australian dollar was high, but we had poor seasonal conditions, which led to reduced supply, variable quality product in the market, bigger export challenges, imports are still very competitive, and strong downward pressure on price. We thought we should focus on existing markets, investigate value-added products that utilise low quality product, again focus on adapted sales, customer service, and probably coaching our team to handle a far more pressurised environment, and focus on systems that will eliminate costs and improve customer service. So we've started to modify our scenarios. So if you work through your scenarios, map them against the strategies you have in your business, then you can start to look at what are some of the subtle changes that you might need to make in terms of implementation and how you might go about doing some of those things. Now, what I look for then is what are some of the common elements and this is really the next step in the process, is, where we're sort of integrating the good ideas back into the core plan. What I start to think of there are, what are some of the common actions that appear out of our analysis. And the common ones are probably things that we need to do in most environments. So in that, if you look back to my matrix here, there was a whole heap of the system stuff and the training stuff. We're probably going to do that need to do that in most of our scenarios. So we need to focus on systems that will reduce our costs and improve customer service and sales. And we need to focus on better sales training, customer service, and team development for our guys. So we can focus on some of those things. They're probably ideas we should incorporate into most strategies. So we'll build that back in if it wasn't really, really part of what we're planning to do. The other thing you can do with the good ideas is then, it's a useful thing, and it is to start to think about, what do I have to monitor if we're going to determine if a particular strategy is coming true? So where I've done this with clients where we've had far more complex strategies and scenarios than this, is we've actually monitored a number of things. So in my example, you just have to, look at seasonal conditions and monitor the Aussie dollar to work out which of the scenarios might be coming true. But if we had a far more complex building of our scenario, then we might need to monitor a range of things to see what's happening. Particularly if we talked about the final steps there to repeat. One of the things you might do is go and pick another two factors and map the scenarios that rise out of those and do the process again. So you may actually repeat this little exercise 3 or 4 times. You'll end up with 12 scenarios. You may only have 4 or 5 factors that you mix and match to come up with those scenarios. But what you're going to end up with is a whole range of things, and then there's probably a range of elements that you need to monitor to see which is coming true and which strategies that we're getting. And my experience is when we've done it with more complex situations, that different components of each scenario will start to come true and may influence the factors or the strategies that we put in place and how we address those. Apologies for the phone. So that's pretty simple. So the basic process, as we've talked about today, is develop a plan. So you need to have a plan to test your scenarios against. Develop 4 possible scenarios. Now we do that by simply using a tool like pestle analysis to analyze the environment, and then once we've analyzed that environment, we can then start to build the scenarios by picking the 2 using the Pareto principle that we think are going to give us a maximum impact. So we pick 2 scenarios, high and low on each of them. 2 factors, high and low on each of them. We then create 4 scenarios. So we specify the scenarios with 4 or 5 dot points each. Then we name them, give them a nice name. We name them because they're far more recognizable, and people have a high recall of scenarios if you put a name on them. So the more groovy and innovative you can put your name, the better it is. We then test the plan against the key strategies, and test the plan and key strategies against each scenario. So we drop them into that matrix where we've got the strategies down one end, the scenarios across the top, and we say, how will this influence the implementation of each of these strategies? Pick the good ideas out, build them back into the core plan, and then repeat the process. It's a fairly simple process. It's not laborious. It doesn't take a lot of time, and it's something that we can all do quickly and easily. All right, so that's the basic process. If you have any questions, please type them into the box, and I'll if possible, I'll even open up the microphone so you can ask some questions. But scenario planning, I guess, is a really simple process. There are more complex methodologies, as I've said. If you'd like some assistance in running a scenario planning exercise in your business, either using this methodology or some more complex ones, happy to help you out with some facilitation. But a lot of people are more than capable of doing this. So, any questions? I'll leave things open to questions for just a minute or two. If you've got one, just please type it into the question area. Okay. Thanks, Simon. So Nabil has posed a question: can scenario planning be used to launch a new business? I guess it can, Nabil, because it's about an environmental analysis. So you're really looking at the environment and what's happening around that. So you can say, here's our original plan to launch this new business, but here's some of the scenarios that may come true. And my experience with people launching businesses are that they normally have rose-colored glasses on anyhow. So looking at different ways, look at the business environment in different ways may actually give them some insights into some things that they hadn't thought of. So that's probably a great way to use that tool. Thanks for that, Nabil. Anybody else? All right. Well, I'll wrap it up in a second. If you've got a question, you've still got some time to drop it in. If you're looking for a bit more information, you can subscribe to our newsletters, either the Horticulture, the Next Generation website, through the website at horticulture-nextgeneration.com.au. Subscribe to the newsletter there, and we will keep you informed about up-and-coming webinars. Similarly, you can go to my website, which is sbdbusiness.com.au, and if you're a general business person, that's probably the best place to go. You can also contact me through the website or on my email address or my mobile phone, which is there. I'm more than happy to talk to you about this and how you may apply it in your business. Now, we're planning our webinar program for 2014 at the moment, and our next webinar will be in 2 to 3 weeks' time. We're just locking down some dates with presenters and things at the moment, and we will keep you notified via our newsletters, both the Horticulture and the Strategic Business Development one is. The good news is that I'm organising a heap of colleagues to deliver a series of webinars on a wide range of topics, which will be really good. Most of them will be this sort of 20 to 30 minute format. We've just done a survey and people are really happy with the 20 to 30 minute format. Although a number of people have said that they would love to spend a bit more time. So rather than rushing through this in 30 minutes, for argument's sake, we might take an hour and a half and really give you an opportunity to work through the exercise and in detail and get some real outcomes out of it, and probably share some more of your outcomes with other people who are on the webinar. So we can use the technology so that we can actually get a lot more interaction. It's just a bit more difficult when we've got a number of people on a large number of people on the webinars we've got today. So we'll start offering those longer things. They will be a premium service. If we're going to start putting a lot more effort into them, then we will do that. But again, just subscribe to the newsletter or go to the website, and we will keep you informed of what's happening there. Yes, we've got a question here from Robbie about viewing the recorded session. Yeah, so I'll hopefully this is all recorded nicely. It seems to be. I'll upload the recording to YouTube, and we will put it load it to the websites, and then we will send you out a link saying a link to the web page, and it will have a copy of the recorded session, a workbook, a copy of the PowerPoint for you, and a link to that website I talked about, the Shell website. There's also a book called The Art of the Long View, which is worth having a look at. But it's an old book now, but it's written by the guy who was the father of scenario planning. All right, so yeah, it will be possible to come to watch the recorded session, and we're finding a number of people are going back and doing that anyhow. All right, then, no further questions. I'll leave it there. So thank you very much for your attendance today. Really appreciate that. Thank you for watching, and we'll look forward to catching up with you in the near future. Thanks very much.